So, in our some of our previous sessions, we have seen, how the header looks like, right? So, in a typical HTTP request or response, we have seen the different types of headers. Today, we will discuss how we can actually control the media type of request as well as response. So, that is done by the header called content type, right? So you have seen, might be seen, the content type is actually coming in the request as well as the response. So it's basically, when you send a request to the server, right? So server should know what kind of data actually you are sending and what kind of data you are expecting back from the server. So the common media types like JSON or XML, you might be aware of, right? Or maybe the images. So I'm giving here in this slide some of the very popular or very common media types. We'll go through a couple of them in our examples demo session. So if you see application side, right? So if you remember when we have done the Dropbox demo, right? So we were actually sending file and we use this application octet stream. So similarly, for different data types, we can use different media types. Like, suppose you are expecting or you are sending a PDF, right? So you can use application PDF, application JSON, XML, zip file, and www from URL encoded. We will explain. I will explain, what is XWWW from URL encoded in another couple of minutes. So similarly, if you see the other media types like images, right? So we have actually support for different types of images also. Like, suppose you are specifically sending a GIF file in your body, right? So you can use image hyphen GIF or JPEG, PNG, SVG, like that. Similarly, for audio and video also, we have no some popular media types like audio, MPEG, then in the video also video, MPEG, MP4, QuickTime, like that. So these media types actually help us to send a proper request to server and let the server know that, okay, no, I'm actually expecting this kind of file from the client, basically, right? So and we can process also accordingly. So there is something called multi-part, right? So if you see here, multi-part also have different media types like multi-part mix, multi-part form data. So a multi-part comes into picture when you send file, right? Suppose you are sending a file and you are not specifying whether it is image, audio, or video. So we can use this multi-part, okay, multi-part media type, content type. So if you see, if you are sending data as application XWWW form URL encoded, that means you are sending a key data in a key value pair. Okay, so the key is the name of that field and the value will be the value. So form URL encoded will not support this file uploading. So for file uploading, either you have to use form data or multipart. Okay, let's go to Postman and we'll see how this looks like when we actually send a request. Okay, so first let's see what is this www form URL encoded. Okay, so in the header you can see the value is the XWWW form URL encoded. In the body also it's the same. So basically this is nothing but key value pair, and the values are actually string values. Okay, so you can add any number of keys here and you can add the values here. What will happen, suppose you are sending this particular request. Again, this is a dummy request, doesn't have anything as of now, it is not implemented, but in the console you can see actually how the request is going, right? So let's see what happens if I send this request. You can see here, this is the request header. Let's go to the request body. You can see here, right? So name is coming as, and then how address is coming as. Basically, it's coming as a key value. So if your requirement, see, this is again for a post request, right? So body parameter will come for post or put. So if your requirement is like, all the fields, suppose all the fields in your form are like, text based field, right? Maybe numbers or strings, right? So you can always use this media type, like form URL encoded media type. uh, but in case like you have a mix of both, then I'll show you how we can actually leverage, multi-part. Form URL encoded, it is like only key value pair you are sending. You, if you see here, right, the first key is name, for example, right? So you cannot actually specify individual content type here. Everything will go as a string. But in the multi-part, actually you can send multiple data type data with, you can specify also what is the type of
Oh,
that
okay,
key.
okay,
We will see that in the multi-part example.
sure, sure.
Okay, and one more thing, one quick thing is, suppose you have not added the headers here. I'll remove the header. So if you are adding something here, right? So Postman, when you save it, Postman automatically should add that particular content type header. So based on whatever you are selecting in your body, right? So when you send the request, Postman automatically add it. Okay. Yeah, let's go to the next, like, individual file, upload file. So here I'm actually selecting a body as binary. Okay. So suppose I want to send any binary file. No, we have also tried this kind of media type, I think, in the Dropbox example, like, sending a binary file. So in that case, we can specify, what is the type of that uh, content, right? Suppose you are, like, okay, you are uploading only image. So in that case, content type you can give image JPEG. Again, here Postman will detect it automatically, but we can actually specify. Suppose it is, it is any file, it is not just image, and you are specifying only image, then again it will be a problematic when you try to upload any other type file, right? So in that case only we can use multi-part. This is for image. Similarly, you can try for other, media files, audio files and all. You can try it out. Okay, let's go to multi-part now. Okay, so here the header is multi-part. Okay, so in the header, I'll show you that. Yeah, when you add it, I think it will come, or you can specifically add a header here. Content type, if you see here, multi-part from data, it is actually showing how to, calculate the boundary also for each, parameter. So if I go to body, if you see here, I have used actually different types. First key is name. Okay, I'm giving value as Dimpy. Okay, and content type, right? So if you see here, there is a 3 dots side, right? You click on that, the content type will be unchecked. You can check it, then you can see the content type here. And this is applicable only when your header is multi-part. Okay, and you are sending the body as a form data. So you can enable that content type, and you can see, like, by default it will take automatic. Okay, so next is like a photo, right? So if you see in the side, you can actually select whether it is a text or it is a file. Okay, so here the second field, right, photo. So since I am uploading a photo, I am selecting as file. Okay, and default it will take automatic only content type. If you want to change it, you can change it. Another important thing is here, suppose I want to send the address as a JSON, not as a string, as a JSON. It can happen, right? So your address can also have multiple fields, like address 1, address line 1, city, then country, right? Your phone number. So multiple fields can be there. So it is possible, like here we can send that as a JSON. So in that case, I'm actually sending as a JSON, and then content type I'm specifying application JSON. Similarly, you can also send XML file. See, key is text here because I'm not sending file, and the content type is application XML. You can send any valid XML data. Then there's an invoice. So I'm sending image2.zip, right? So content type is application zip. Uh, if you consider a typical application, right, like a KYC application, right, you may see different, it will ask you to upload different documents, right? So maybe your photo, your PAN card, or your address proof, right? So those kind of things can be implemented using multipart. Okay. uh, Again, as a best practice, they suggest, like if you are using files, bigger files, so instead of sending that as a binary, so you should always use multipart header, and for in the form data you can send as appropriate content type. If you see here, name is coming as it is, address and order details are coming as JSON or your XML. But if you see photo and invoice, it is showing undefined, right? So this is a Postman issue actually. Don't bother about that. If it is implemented correctly, then Postman should send the data accordingly. Okay. This undefined, this is a Postman defect, so just ignore that for time being. Otherwise, it should take the path of that photo or invoice. I can show you in the other one, like if you send this upload image. You can see here, right? In the body, it is going as a path. So similarly, multipart also, like it should actually show the payload as a section wise. Maybe Postman has not implemented that, or since we are just sending a dummy request, it is not showing in that case. But when you send an actual request, right, so multipart will have each field will be having its own boundary. Okay, it will calculate, the Postman will calculate that boundary, and it will construct that payload, and it will send. So each field will be having a predefined boundary, so that we don't mix up the data in the payload. Predefined means it will not predefine exactly. It is a pre-calculated, right? So for example, you are sending 3 different data type. Each will be having its own size, right? Then you will be having a file, right? Different file. Each will be having its own number of bytes you need to send, right? So it will calculate the size, and it will calculate the boundary between the fields. Okay, and then it will send the payload, so that your name field and your image field doesn't overlap when you send a raw packet. Show you, maybe I'll just write and show you something like this. Your body, right? Payload. So it will be like name, then your boundary start, right? Name, then your boundary and then again your boundary start image. Then your image data will, your data will come here inside. Here data will come, data for name, like that. Then boundary and something like this. Yeah, basically it's like you're parting your form based on the data type, right? And since you are having multiple data types, so you are putting a boundary between the data types. If you see here in the content type also, see, it is mentioning, right, boundary equal to calculated when the request is sent. Because we will not know what is the boundary before the request is sent, right? So
Okay.
it should calculate the boundary when the request is sent, and accordingly it will send the data.
Okay.
So again, if you see from a practical point of view, mostly in your projects and all, you will be seeing this multi-part whenever you have some file uploads and all. Okay, so if suppose you have a form, right? If it is just a file upload, like in the form, if you have just a file upload, you can upload it as a binary. But if it is a form, right? So it has different data types. Then we use this multi-part. Yeah. So raw content type is like, you can send JSON also, right? Only JSON. Suppose your media type, media type of your that request is only JSON or only a file, right? For example, here, right? So this is binary, but if you want to send a JSON file, XML file, right? So in that case, you can use the raw. So here you can say raw, and here you can select the type.